It's story time!
Hello and welcome to the Storytime podcast. I'm on my own this week and I am here to tell you a quick story before I run away to play sport. But it is a story about being on a bus. And it happened to me recently and I really enjoyed telling it to people, and I want to tell it to you because I can talk for longer. Because I always worry that people are getting bored of my long stories while I'm saying them. So, welcome back to the Storytime podcast. This podcast is sponsored by Rick Clements, one of my Patreons. If you check out the link down in the description, I've set up a Patreon and there's various different rewards. And we're starting with the rewards this week. So this podcast is sponsored by Rick Clements. Thank you so much, Rick, for being a Patreon. And yeah, we're on Twitter and YouTube and Facebook. Are we on Facebook? No. Twitter and YouTube and all that jazz. And SoundCloud and iTunes and Podbean and Stitcher and Pocket Cast, I believe. So you should be able to get this podcast anywhere that you feel like getting it. So yes, I've set up a Patreon to support the podcast, to improve the quality of the podcast, and to support my main channel videos as well. So if you want to go check that out, the link is down in the description. So let's get into the story. Let's get right into the news. Oh, I know what that's from. I thought I was quoting BoJack Horseman. Anyway, so let's get into the story, right? So basically, I was on my way into a party recently in Dublin city centre. Now, anyone who has not been to Ireland, context is important here. You need to know that on Dublin bus, a lot of the time it's a totally normal journey, and sometimes it really isn't. Sometimes it really, really isn't. So there can be a lot of weirdos on Dublin bus, and my personal theory on it is that they go weird after a certain hour. So I think the Dublin bus patrons get weirder as the night goes on. So I got on the Dublin bus anyway at 9 p.m. and I sat down in my seat. And this girl came down the aisle and she greeted me like she knew me. So I had about 3 seconds to decide how I was going to approach that. So I didn't recognise her from Adam, but what if I knew her? I had to buy time. So I greeted her back like I knew her. And then I was too late. I was in it to win it then. And she sat down beside me. And I think at that point, I definitely knew I didn't know her. She didn't seem to matter to her. Or maybe she was also trying to play it off like we hadn't just greeted each other like we were best mates. So she sits down beside me. I'm like, I'm in this now. Right? We're chatting. And she asks me directions to a place. And she begins to talk to me like she knows me. So she's like, oh yeah, my friend Granya's having her birthday party tonight in this place. You know, I was actually meant to be in there around 8, but I'm running late. And I said I'd head in now, and hopefully it won't be an issue. And I was like, yeah, hopefully she won't have an issue with it. I didn't really know what to say. And the conversation anyway got to the point where she said, where are you from? And I said, Mayo. And she was like, I don't think I've ever been to Mayo. Which I thought was kind of odd, because wouldn't you know if you'd been somewhere? And then I said, to fill the space, I was like, you should go to Achill sometime. And she was like, oh. So I said to her that we should go to Achill. You can go horse riding, you can go camping. It's great. Mayo spokesperson over here. And she says, I've never opened up enough in my previous relationships. And I was like, what? And she's like, I never opened up enough in my previous relationships. I used to go horse riding when I was a kid. I used to love horse riding. And I never told any of my previous boyfriends I used to go horse riding. Do you know when you're in a relationship and you just, one person takes a lot longer to open up and just I just never opened up. And I was like, okay. And then she's like, I'm seeing this guy now. Do you know, he's 38. I think it was 38. And she's like, so that's perfect age. I'm 40 and I'm looking for a future now, so hopefully it's going to work out. And I was just like, is this conversation really happening? And she goes, so she goes, here's all our WhatsApp chats. And she showed me her phone, and she showed me all the WhatsApp chats and his picture. And I didn't know what to say when she showed me his picture. I just went, ooh, he's good looking. Like, what am I supposed to say? And she was like, yeah, I met him on Plenty. She was like, I met him online. And I was like, was it Tinder? And she goes, no, it's Plenty of Fish. And the funny thing about the conversation was that the sentences would end there. So then I'd be like, okay. So she's like, no, it was Plenty of Fish. And I was like, okay. She's like, yeah, he didn't have his name on his profile. And I was like, oh dear. She's like, why is that bad? And I'm like, well, I don't know. I don't use Plenty of Fish. So yeah, this whole interaction was odd. She also told me about her hair and like what colour she dyed her hair and how she did her makeup. It was an incredibly unusual interaction, but it was totally harmless. And it was actually arguably rather enjoyable. In terms of experiences I've had on Dublin bus, the lady that sat down and chatted to me like I was her mate and told me like, and opened up to me the way she's never opened up in any of her previous relationships was actually rather an enjoyable experience, in fairness. So then this guy gets on that this owl fella is a mad owl bastard. And I don't mean to like mad owl bastard shame, but this mad owl bastard was a particularly mad owl bastard, right? So he gets on the bus and he walks all the way down to the back of the bus where we were sitting. And he sits down and he shuts up for approximately 2 seconds. And then he gets back up again and he looks over at me, and I can't remember how eyebrows came up into the conversation. I am pretty sure he pulled it out of his arse. I'm pretty sure he just he brought it up. But he goes, show me, he goes to Laura, I think her name was, I cannot remember. He goes, your eyebrows are painted on. And Laura was like, okay, like she didn't say anything. She just kind of looked at me. And he looked at me and he said, your eyebrows are too high. And I went, oh, they're too high, are they? And he went, they're too high. And I was like, I'll make a note of that now the next time I'm doing my makeup. Random man on bus. I even did this. So, random man on bus. For the people who are watching, I'm holding my hand like a paper and pen. I was like, random man on bus thinks my eyebrows are too high. Noted. Because he was mental and he was being quite rude and I was not there for it. And then she was like looking at me and she's like, geez, you're fierce calm. Like, how can you be so calm? Fucking used to shaking the bus that time. And the Lewis, and he goes, he takes his hand, makes like a rock symbol, right? Licks his 2 fingers, which are his baby finger and his pointer finger. Licks the 2 of them. And by the way, his hands were like really like dirty, like black under his nails. It was disgusting. He licks his 2 fingers and then he like does the sizzle motion over his eyebrows, like the motion that kids do when they're like, but he doesn't make the sound. He just like rubs his eyebrows with the 2 licked fingers, and he goes, "Look at my eyebrows." And I was like, okay, what? I was like, yes, your eyebrows. And he was like, they're bushy. And I was just like, okay. So then he goes to the girl in front of, sitting across from us, facing us, Spanish girl. He was like, your eyebrows are perfect. Yours are the best. And then I don't think she quite understood what was happening. And I just started pacing myself laughing. I was like, oh, apparently you have the best eyebrows. And then she started to tell a story of her mother chopping off one of her eyebrows. She's like, I did have good eyebrows, but look what happened here. My mother said she would fix them for me, but she cut them in half. And I was just sitting on the back of the bus going, how did I get here? Like, I'm in a conversation about eyebrows with 3 total strangers. Only in Ireland, man. Only in fucking Ireland. And I was just pissing myself laughing. So this girl told me this story. She told it twice because I think she thought I didn't understand it. And yeah, that was the crux of the story, is that her mother cut off the end of her eyebrow, and which was actually, in fairness, quite funny. And then the owl fella got bored by this because she told the story twice, so I think he just got bored. So he went off, and on his way off the bus, he asked every single goddamn person on the bus, he asked them to gives a shot of your eyebrow. As in, show me your eyebrows in Dublin speak. He's like, gives a shot of your eyebrows. And he critiqued everybody's eyebrows on the way out of the bus, like men and women alike. In fact, the first person he said it to was a man. And I'm not joking. People are not going to believe that this is a true story. And I think when I tell it, people don't believe it. But it is actually a true story. And then he got off the bus and straight into a pub. It was honest to God the oddest experience I've had on public transport. However, I have had a few odd experiences on public transport. There was the time that I took a errand bus from Dublin to Mayo, and and a woman sat beside me. I was on the bus first, and she sat beside me, and she smelled so strongly of fish. I am convinced she had a fish in her jacket, because you couldn't smell like that unless you had a fish in your jacket. And I'm pretty sure she had bought fish, maybe for the dinner. I don't know. I don't know her life. And put it in her jacket. So I was on the bus home. And I don't particularly love the smell of fish, by the way. I was on the bus home, just like being like, oh my God, get me out of here. And not only that, but she sat on the bus and she, the whole way to Balnagar, she kept going. Are we in Balnagar? Oh my God, it was so gross. People are going to think I'm being really mean now, because it was an older woman, but oh my God, she kept hawking, and then swallowing the mucus she'd hawked up and going, are we in Balnagar? Balnagar. And I can't even do the accent. And I was just like, oh my God, get me off this bus. The bus used to be packed from Dublin to Mayo. I used to never have a choice when you sat beside. I do think my favourite public transport story, though, has to be the English woman I sat beside, again on a bus from Dublin to Mayo. And she started chatting to me. And I don't hate strangers talking to me. On Dublin bus, it's fine. But on long journeys from Dublin to Mayo, I used to really like to sleep, especially because I was in college and I didn't get much sleep during the week. And then I was traveling 8 hours at the weekend to get home to work for 16 hours. So I really didn't have time to chat. I really needed that time to sleep. She started chatting to me and I was being polite, so I chatted to her, and she was like, where are you from, blah, 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 the usual questions. And then she got to how many brothers and sisters do you have? And I said, 1. And she said, it's important. Is it important? Yeah. We're not there yet, sorry. She said at that point, no, it is important. You need this for context. You need to know that in the course of the conversation, it had come up that she was Protestant. She had brought it up. That randomly, okay? So you actually do need that for context of the story. So then she was like, how many brothers and sisters do you have? And I was like, 1. And she goes, 1! And I was like, yeah, 1. And she was like, looking at me like I had 2 heads. She goes, was your mother a Catholic? And I was like, yes. Why? And she was like, God, it's unusual for a Catholic woman to only have 2 children. Oh my God. I just didn't know where to look. And then she goes, what age is your brother? And I was like, he's 11 years older than me. And she was like, 11 years? What were you? An afterthought. And at that point, I just pretended to go to sleep. Because I was like, I'm not putting up with this anymore. That was pretty funny. It's not a funny story, But the last story I'm going to tell you is the reason I gave up smoking. So people often ask me if I smoke or if I used to smoke because they've spotted me with a cigarette in some of my older videos. Now, I haven't been smoking since I started YouTube. I quit smoking before I met my other half. So my other half 9 years. So this October then, because it was October, yeah. This October it'll be 10 years since I quit smoking. Now I did fall briefly off a wagon there in Australia 5 years ago. But I'm officially quit smoking since 10 years, or that period of social smoking. So I used to smoke arguably a lot. Like I used to smoke like 10 cigarettes a day. Like I was definitely going through a 20 pack every 2 days. And I was trying to give it up, and I had tried to give it up a couple of times and it hadn't stuck. I just kept basically falling off the wagon. And I got onto the train for once from Dublin to Mayo. And on the train, I liked the train because you can drink cans on the train. It was full, and I ended up sitting beside, I can't remember whether I sat beside them or whether they came in and sat beside me later on in the train journey. I think that might be what happened. But it was a lovely older couple, and I got chatting to them, and I ended up chatting with them the whole way to wherever they got off. And the man of the couple even bought me cans of Bulmers. This is back when I was a student and I was still drinking cider. And he bought me a can of Bulmers. We had cans together on the train, me and this couple. But the interesting thing about this couple was the man had one of those things. I don't know what they're called. Sorry, I'm not a doctor. The things that you press to your throat to be able to talk. And I think he addressed it like immediately when he sat down to kind of like just get it out there, so I didn't have to ask or whatever. Because I was obviously intrigued. And he said that what happened was he had throat cancer from smoking. And that this is the result. Like, that he was alive, but he had to use this thing to talk for the rest of his life. And he said to me to give up smoking. I was talking to him and I was like, oh my God, like, I'm just after giving up. And he was like, don't smoke. He's like, this is what happens. And it really was, sorry, I thought I was going to sneeze. It really was like a wake-up call, I think, in terms of what actually happens when you smoke cigarettes. And I genuinely, for 5 years after that, did not touch another cigarette. Like, I didn't smoke at all. Yes, I fell off the wagon in Australia briefly, but I'm back on it again another 5 years or whatever. How long am I in Australia since? 4.5. Yeah, so that was the most life-changing story I have from public transport. The rest of them are just gas. So yeah, I hope this was an okay podcast. I'm sorry to give you such a short podcast or rush it. I had a few mishaps with this week's planned episode, so this is an off-the-cuff episode to try and get you one on time. And next week's episode should be good. And yeah, please let me know your transport stories in the comments on YouTube, or you can tweet them at storytime_pod. Because I think that sometimes public transport stories are among the funniest stories you can tell. Like that that Catholic story always gets me a good laugh at parties. That it's unusual for a Catholic woman to only have one child. I sound like, do you remember, all the land we have is covered. Okay, I'm so hyper. This is the problem. I came home from work today, I'm sweating, I'm rushing, and I've had so much coffee today that I cannot think straight. So I hope all these stories made sense. Thank you so much for subscribing to the Storytime podcast. This episode again is sponsored by Rick Clements, who is one of my Patreons. If you want to become a Patreon, please check out the link down in the description. I'll see you again next week, this time with a guest. Okay, bye. Oh, I'm sorry, my phone is ringing. What's up? Alright, okay. I'm trying to record a podcast before tag. Love you. Bye, 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 bye. I'm gonna have to edit there.